Welcome to the Unit 3 homework packet video tutorial. This is just for page 3. Okay, today in class we started talking about ions. So what happens when we have ions is that ape man is no longer true. If y'all remember, we did that in Unit 1, and that was also 8th grade TEKS. That we were talking about atomic number equals protons equals electrons. That's usually true unless we have an ion, because an ion is an atom that has a charge. So that means we've lost or gained electrons. So coming over here to look at our example, you can look at that one. We probably did number 1 in class, so let's start by jumping down to number 3. So for number 3, they're asking us, how many valence electrons does lithium have? So remember, for valence electrons, we're looking at our A groups. We ignore the B groups down here, because the B's are bad boys who break the rules. So we're never really going to ask you about those B's. But up here, 1A, like lithium, 1A has 1 valence electron. Okay. Because lithium is on the left-hand side of the periodic table, it is a metal. Okay, and I always tell the home students that metals are messy. They lose their electrons. So metals are messy, they lose their electrons. So if we let lithium will choose to lose that 1 valence electron. So instead of having an equal number of protons and electrons, it lost its negative, which means it's going to be positive. So metals are messy, they lose their electrons, which means now it's more positive than it used to be. Which means if I have a positive charge, I am a cation, because cats have paws. Meow. Okay, so a positive ion is a cation. If we come down here and we look at number 4, selenium, Se is right here. It's in family 16 or 6A, which means it has 6 valence electrons. Because it's on the right-hand side of the periodic table, selenium is a nonmetal. Okay. Metals are messy, they lose their electrons, which means our nonmetals are greedy, they're going to gain electrons. So instead of trying to get to 0 like this one did, and it lost 1 electron, selenium is going to try to get electrons so that it can be more like the kings and queens, the noble gases. So in order to go from having 6 valence electrons to having 8, selenium needs to gain 2 more electrons. So if we let selenium, it will want to go pick up 2 more electrons, which means it will be 2 more negative than it was before, because electrons are negative. So if we let it, selenium will turn into a -2, so that it can have a total of 8 valence electrons. And anions, I always tell my students, is N-A-N-I-O-N is for negative, non-metal. Okay? So if it's negative, non-metal, it is an anion. Okay, negative, non-metal there. If we want to come down and look at, I wonder if there's a trickier one. I don't really think there's a trickier one. So let's look at bromine. Okay, bromine, if we can get my thing to move, bromine's right here on the periodic table. It is a halogen in family 17, so it has 7 valence electrons. Being over here, it's a nonmetal. Okay, metals are messy, they lose electrons. Nonmetals are going to gain electrons. So it's unhappy or unstable with 7 valence electrons. It needs 1 more electron in order to get to an octet, in order to be like the noble gases. So if I let bromine, it will want to get 1 more electron, which will make it more negative than it used to be. It'll get a -1. And that makes it a negative non-metal. Okay, last one I want to do with y'all, gallium. Gallium is right here. It's in group 13 or 3A, which means it has 3 valence electrons. Gallium being over here on the left-hand side, left of that transition line, would be a metal. Okay, metals are messy. They lose their electrons. So gallium is going to choose to lose all 3 of those electrons, which means it lost 3 electrons. So it's less negative than it used to be, or more positive. Okay, and if you're positive, you are a cat, because cats have paws, so that makes it a cation. Okay, that's how you're going to fill in this table. Looking down at our word blank, or excuse me, our word bank here for fill in the blanks. Metals are messy, they tend to lose electrons. Okay, forming positive ions called cations. Nonmetals tend to gain electrons, forming negative ions called anions. In an ionic bond, electrons are transferred. Okay, and I like to say in an ionic bond, like this, electrons are transferred from a metal to a nonmetal. So from something on this side of the periodic table to something on this side of the periodic table. Okay, so from a metal to a nonmetal, creating oppositely charged ions. Okay, another term for charge of an ion is called the oxidation state. So if you were absent and you missed those, if you can't find it in your notes, those are our answers. All right, good job. We're going to start making compounds with these ions next class.